Hello, guys. Welcome to the Gotta Wanderlust podcast. I'm your host, Lydia, and today I'm with special guest Carolyn Palmer. And Carolyn is originally from Texas, and I met her through the Ox program. We're both English language assistants in Spain. So I thought I'd chat with her about our experiences living abroad teaching English. So, welcome to the show, Carolyn.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be on the show and back in Madrid after spending last summer here.
Yes, so we just recorded a podcast through your own show called Generation Overwhelmed, which is so much fun. I'll link that in the show notes. But today I wanted to hear more about your experiences. So tell me what inspired you to do the NALCAP program.
Yes. So after my internship in Madrid last year, I just felt in my soul that I needed to be back in the city. Um, and I was applying for some jobs related to my degree, which is journalism. But my dad basically makes connections, like connects people for a living. So he was like, here, I found this program, NALCAP, you're a part-time teacher. And I'm like, me, a teacher? No, no, no. But I applied for about 2 to 3 journalism jobs and I said, I'm done with this. Maybe let's look at what my dad sent me. And I do like teaching in the way of, guiding people. Like I like seeing their satisfaction when they when they finally understand something new. And I just wanted to be back in Madrid. And I actually got placed in a town of about 15,000 people. It's about a 45-minute bus ride from the city of Madrid. It's called El Escorial. It's gorgeous. It is quite literally in the mountains, which I love because being from Texas, there's absolutely none of that. And I teach 12 to 18-year-olds, and I actually have a running list of crazy and funny things they say because there are a lot of them.
Would you like to share?
Oh my gosh, of course. Okay, yes. One of my favorites. I'm gonna change this girl's name in case it's a privacy concern, but I'm gonna call her Lucia. And she is in just one of my classes, but she just she sees me. One time I said I was going home because my school day had ended before hers, and she just goes no and keeps talking to me. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'm not going home. I guess I'm missing the bus so I can talk to you. And then this same day I asked her what she was doing after school. She goes, oh, okay, like Miguel, he's going to the dentist. My friend, she's just going home to do homework, and I'm gonna kidnap a hamster. Mind you, she is in one of the classes with a relatively low English level, but she knows how to say kidnap a hamster. Um, I was just like, okay, I'm not gonna ask about that. One time, one of my students raised his hand as I was telling them about climate change in this biology class. And I'm like, yes, again, I'm changing the names, but Miguel, what do you want? He goes, Rosa has a boyfriend. I go, thank you so much for informing me. And then I had one of my older students who's either 17 or 18. I was asking him if he was taking notes, and he goes, I'm taking notes in here, and then just taps his head. Those notes were not taken because when I listened to his podcast episode, he had not applied the changes. But so honestly, whenever I have to get up early or I'm just not feeling it, one of the kids will say something hilarious, and I'm like, okay, so life is worth living. It's worth being here.
It was worth getting up at 6 a.m. for this.
Yes.
Amazing. And then how was like your thought process about, going into education, being an English teacher? Like, did you have teaching experience? I know you said you have a journalism degree, but like, were you nervous about teaching English?
So, two or maybe a few things. I'm very impatient. I was mostly scared of the age of kids I was going to be teaching because once I learned it was secundaria, which is high school, I was like, so if they're 18, they are 5 years younger than me. Like, they're not going to respect me. I think all of them do respect me, but the older kids just more like you can tell they don't want to be there. But in terms of teaching, I found myself either in my sorority or with my internship being in kind of a mentor position of like, okay, I've been through this process, let me guide you through it. So I feel like that has helped. But the last semester of college, which was in spring of 2024, I joined this club where they assigned us to schools around Austin just to go for 1 hour a week to teach ESL kids English. And I had requested to be put with Spanish speakers because I figured if I'm about to move to a new country to teach English, let's try this, in my hometown and see if I like it. And I really did like that. It definitely is a struggle if they have a low level of English, but I feel like that's just made me a better communicator, which, I graduated from the communication school, so that's always a good thing to do. And I have loved teaching English. I think that is the only realm of teaching I see myself sticking in because I don't know, I just feel like there's more satisfaction and it's more of a hurdle to jump over learning another language versus just, okay, let's memorize these facts and I'm going to grade 15 essays that say the same thing but with a lot of grammar issues. So yeah, I think this is a great part-time job for me to have right now, and it also lets me do part-time like marketing and photography work, but I just don't think I was built to be a full-time teacher.
Yeah, that's so fair. It's a great entry point for people not super sure if they want to be English teachers because, like Carolyn said, it's only part time. We work 16 hours a week here in Madrid. It depends on the region you're placed in, but in Madrid, it is 16 hours capped. And then usually the work schedule is starting at 9 a.m. and then we get off at 2 p.m. and then we have like a 30-minute break. Is that kind of what it looks like for you, Carolyn?
So my schedule is different every day, which I don't know if that's just because I'm in secondary school and they kind of need me more places. But Tuesdays and or whoa, Mondays I work from 9:30 to 12:30, it's 3 classes in a row, and then I tutor one of the teachers for an hour after that. Um, Tuesdays I don't have to go in until 10:20, but since I help with theater, I'm there until like 3:15. And it was funny, my coordinator was saying, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I'm going to keep you so late for the theater club, but it's literally over at 3:15. But I guess that is cutting into Spaniards typical lunchtime. So yeah, I'm normally there for about 4 hours a day with at least one period off. um and I will say, if you're teaching secondary school, um you're in a classroom for 16 hours, but like I have at least 1 to 2 lessons to plan every week, so of course that takes time. And emailing the teacher, hey, what do you want, like meeting up for feedback. So I think if you're teaching older kids, or not, I think there definitely is more outside work. So I would not recommend breaking down the pay by hour because it's almost nothing if you do that, especially if you're in secondary school. But I'm like, you know what? It's not that serious. Like, I'm not a full-time teacher, and like honestly, my presence there just speaking English is helping them. So, if this presentation isn't perfect, like obviously I'll take the feedback, but it's kind of taught me a perfectionist to realize, hey, not everything has to be, worthy of getting an A. Also, like, I graduated, I need to stop thinking about grades, but
That brings up a few points that I could talk about, which is one, the living stipend or the payments that we get per month is essentially just to cover living expenses. We don't get paid much as English auxiliaries. So don't come in expecting to be balling with your budget because if you really want to make the most of it, like travel on the weekends, maybe go to different countries, like you have to come in with savings. You cannot rely on what they're paying us. Um, and as far as teaching secondary, I from what I've heard from other auxes, you do have to plan lessons a bit more. You have to devote more time outside of the classroom. In my experience teaching primaria, I have no outside like work that I have to do. There's no lesson planning involved. That doesn't necessarily mean my job is easier because like sitting in the back of the classroom is it can be even more boring and make time go by slower than if you're leading the classroom. But that's just something to keep in mind. It really depends on the school, what your responsibilities are like. Um, so that leads me to ask, like, how do you go about lesson planning if you don't have a teaching background? Like, do you have internet resources you consult, or do you just kind of go with what the teachers ask?
Yeah, so I think that I'm very lucky because the school I was placed at in general, the staff is great. A lot of them have a high level of English and are just in general very communicative. And like my bilingual coordinator, who's essentially my boss, is, he sent me a survey of what classes are you interested in? What classes should I not place you in? And then there is an auxiliar de conversación, who this is her second year at this school. So she made us a whole guidebook, and that included some teaching, like ESL teaching resources. Um, and I'll use those for my kids who have a lower level of English. But for the other classes, it's mostly the teacher will send me an email, or I'll meet with them during the week and they'll say, hey, for this week, for example, with my older kids, I'm making them a presentation about US politics and what that looks like with the election right now. So that looks like researching, like making a Google Doc of all the information and then putting that into Canva. And then, like with this presentation, it's really long. So the teacher and I met of like, okay, let's do these 5 slides this week. And, you know, some teachers are more communicative and on top of it than others. But like for my art class, I don't, at least right now, I don't have to do any outside planning. It's just whatever she tells me to do in class, which is very nice.
That definitely highlights the discrepancy between schools because it seems like your coordinator is very familiar with how to utilize auxes versus my school. It's many of the teachers first year having an auxiliary, so they don't really know what to do with me, hence why they don't know like how I could help them. They don't give me much responsibilities. So I'll just use this time to politely ask NALCAP to give more guidance to teachers and schools with utilizing auxiliaries and also just making sure the communication between auxes and their schools are clearer, just to make the partnership as effective as it can be. Because I feel like NALCAP doesn't give much guidance whatsoever on the whole process, no. Actually, from like
and then figure it out.
Literally. So, as far as outside of the classroom, kind of adjusting to Spanish life, did you experience any cultural shocks coming to Spain?
That is a good question. Um, I know we had talked about this in my podcast interview, but just the difference between the Spanish I learned in a classroom versus what's learned here. Because I'm from Texas, so not only do you have the difference between South American Spanish and Spain Spanish, it is the speed at which they talk, because I swear they're not speaking Spanish sometimes. It is so, so quick. Like, I don't even speak English that quickly when I'm hype on 3 cups of coffee. So there was that. And then I am a generally shy person in new situations. So I have had to accept the fact that I'm going to embarrass myself. I'm going to mess up with either looking lost or saying the wrong thing or not knowing a word in Spanish. But like that helps me grow. That's what life is about. Other culture shocks. I feel like in Spain and in many places in Europe, there's more of a concept of a third place. But in the US, we don't have that. Like, we just have work and home. But here in Spain, they have all these parks. They have bars literally every 20 feet where you can go get tapas. And I feel like that is related to these small apartments here because, like, our kitchen is tiny, versus in America I would want to have a big kitchen because I would want to cook for people and host, but here everyone just goes somewhere else, which that's it's been a positive cultural shock for the vibes, but kind of a negative one for my wallet, because even though stuff is cheap here, you know, if you're doing that like every day or every week, it adds up. um and then they're slower, relaxed pace of life here. I'm like, so I'll go with the flow if I know exactly what the flow is, exactly what time stuff is happening, versus they're just like, oh, you know, we'll it's 4 p.m. We'll have our lunch, then maybe we'll get a beer, and then, you know, maybe and I'm not saying this in a derogatory way, like I admire it, and they're like, you know, and maybe I'll look at my work email today, or maybe I'll spend an hour reading in Retiro, and like that is like literally a normal day. Versus that might not even be a weekend mindset in the US. And so part of the reason I also did this program right after coming into college is because, or right after graduating college, is because I wanted to start off my career with work-life balance, which simply does not exist in the United States.
So true. I definitely think there's a greater emphasis on life here in Spain and pretty much all of Europe, I believe. From just what I've heard, from what I've experienced in the US, we're all about maximizing productivity, and here leisure time is definitely prioritized more, which I also deeply appreciate. And then as far as like in my experience adjusting to the kind of go with the flow attitude in general, I also appreciate this, but I found the most frustration come from customer service. So when I'm in restaurants, if we're waiting to order food, you really have to like fight for the waiter's attention or else you will not get noticed. The waiter will kind of just be like doing their own thing, kind of just like floating amongst the tables, almost sometimes seemingly avoiding eye contact with customers. So that can be frustrating, especially if you're actually hungry and you want your food.
I get angry, so I've learned I need to start walking somewhere an hour before I start getting hungry, because I also hate interrupting. Like, I also hate interrupting people, even if it's literally asking them to do their job. But I'm like, sorry, like, could I please like have food in this restaurant, which is something I shouldn't feel bad about. But yes, then it's like, if you're ever getting lunch or dinner, don't make plans immediately afterwards, because you have to allot at least 15 minutes to ask, like, to catch the waiter's attention to get the check. But you know, that's also kind of helping with social anxiety. Like, I just have to yell something in a foreign language. Like, it's a good exposure therapy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I need to work on that exposure therapy because personally I'm the same. Like I feel bad like I don't know, getting like I don't even know what to say like if I'm trying to get the waiter's attention. Like I don't want to like raise my hand. Like that seems stupid.
Especially with ordering, like I feel they'll look at you weirdly. I've experienced this. If you walk in and you don't immediately start saying your order, like unless there's a line, like you have to be like, "Hola, un bocadillo," and they'll be like, "Okay, got it." Like you just simply start saying food, and that'll get their attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we need to get better on that, I guess.
Guess we'll just have to go eat out more and practice.
Okay, yeah. Besides cultural shocks, how did you kind of adjust to making friends or adjusting to the different time schedules and whatnot?
Yes, so I have learned say yes to everything. Because like I think we're both in the big Instagram group chat called Madrid Bound of people teaching in Madrid, and like there was a picnic of oxes of English teachers one night. So I was like, yes. Or like my roommate sometimes they'll just be like, do you want to go get tapas? Like, let's go to this bar. I say yes, because you know, even if I don't meet a lifelong friend, like I get to know an area better, or you know, like I have a fun conversation with someone. And I love my roommates. Met them online, but sometimes I find myself like I'm like, oh, these are, again, some of the greatest human beings, but I have only hung out with them this week. And I really am here to build a community of both English speaker, like people from English speaking countries and internationals and Spaniards. Um, and so my roommates have been to a language exchange at a bar, and I've been wanting to go there, but I also make it a habit to just chat with the teachers or like the consejeria, like the secretaries at my school, or like today I finally went to a church service. Like I just looked up English speaking churches in um Madrid, and I was anxious to do that because I mean it's going to a new place for me is always anxiety inducing, but it's also like I hadn't been to a church in a while, like even though I wanted to. And so I've recently adopted the mindset of do it scared. Like I'm gonna be scared, I'm gonna question myself anyways, but I still want to do it. So yeah, and especially in Spain, if someone is like, oh yeah, do you want to grab tapas or a beer or coffee, just say yes. You know, obviously if it's like a creepy dude and we're no, say no. I love being able to say no to the guys who are like promoting bars. Like, "Quieres un chupito?" We go, no, and power walk away. So,
Yes, I love that. I love that philosophy of just being open to whatever life throws at you because you never know what experiences or lessons will come out of it. So, kind of just to wrap up, what do you love about Madrid? Because you mentioned to me that you may plan on extending your year here, may end up living here
yeah.
like for longer into the future. So, what is one of your favorite things about living here in Madrid?
Yeah, so I just love the energy of Madrid because it is the capital of Spain. So it has hustle and bustle, but it's a Spanish hustle and bustle. Like the only times people are running or like maybe shoving you are when they're late for the metro train. Other than that, it's like tranqui, like calm down. And there's stuff to do. There's a lot of culture, there are museums, there's with the public transportation and it being a walkable city and a pretty international one, it is so easy to find something interesting, which I feel like adds to the energy of, you know, big, interesting city, but it's not overwhelming. Like in New York, like I could not last for more than the weekend I spent in New York. Like my wallet could also not last there. Um, and also just the beauty in, I mean, this isn't through Madrid and El Escorial where I work, but like there's the mountains right there, and just the architecture, you know, even in Madrid you have the royal palace and cathedrals that are gorgeous and actually historic, not like US historic being like, oh yeah, this is from 100 years ago. Europe's like, hold my beer, this is from 2000 years ago. um and there are just a lot of different walks of life here, because Spain also has a program where if you're from most but not all like Latin American countries, like if you have citizenship there, you can easily get either residency or citizenship here. And then obviously you have a lot of Americans living here, and then a lot of Madrileños, like people who have grown up in Madrid. So it's basically a manageable big European city. And yes, I would love to live here. So if anyone listening has a Spanish passport and wants to pareja de hecho with me, or like if you're a cute boy, I know that marrying into citizenship is also an option. So, and then of course the ease with which you can travel either around Spain or hop on a flight. And there's just always something new to explore here. So, yes, and would love to live here for my 20s. And I also am lucky that I get, you know, to live in Madrid, but where I work is again a small town in the mountains. Like I literal breath of fresh air when I go there. So I do like being able to have those two things. So yes, would love to make this my home for the next few years.
Yes, getting that EU citizenship is the goal.
Mhm.
It's the goal.
Spanish passport trigger is so sexy to me.
No, for real. And then, would you have any advice to someone thinking about doing the NALCAP program that you would like to share from your experience?
Yes. If you were thinking about doing it, do it. I don't care if you have a million doubts in your head, just apply, because it's better to like have an offer and change your mind than, come June or like the next election be like, oh shit, I should have done that. This also goes back to the do it scared mindset, because I was like, oh my gosh, what if this doesn't work out, and what if my roommates are weird, and what if I hate my job, what if I hate teaching, like blah blah blah. um I mean, I think you definitely, like we were talking about, need just at least a basic grasp on Spanish. Like just look up essential travel phrases for Spanish, at least memorize those. um but other than that, like if you can make it through the process of getting your visa, navigating all the Reddit threads about that, and moving here, like, and getting an apartment, you can literally do anything. And also, I think I mentioned this, but I was scared that if I got a job in the US, that even if I didn't love it, I would be scared to, pack up everything and move, because I would be scared of what people thought. Like, why am I leaving a relatively stable job in the US? But like, if you're wanting to do it 1 year, chances are you'll be wanting to do it in the future too. So might as well just say, hey, there are gonna be a lot of bumps in the road, but I'll end up in Spain. And like my sister says, no complaino while in Spaino. Because sometimes I will literally say, like, oh my gosh, I'm having a bad day, but I also could be in the sweltering heat of Texas right now, which is controlled by a government that I do not like. So yeah, just because like I'm a very anxious person, but I made it over here, and I like to plan out everything, and nothing has gone according to plan, but I'm still loving my life over here.
Yes, do it for the plot.
Honestly, yeah, do that.
Yes, like when you look back on your life, what will you regret more? Doing it or not doing it?
Yeah, like I want to be the aunt or like friend aunt who has all these wild travel stories, like up until the day that she dies. That is the energy I'm trying to cultivate. Yeah. So do it for the plot, but know your Spanish phrases and have an emergency money fund.
Yes. And like I said in Carolyn's episode, baby, come here before the program starts to adjust, just for a little buffer time to adjust. Okay, thank you so much, Carolyn, for sharing your insights. I hope that if you're considering NALCAP, that you just do it, and you could feel free to contact me or Carolyn. I'll leave her socials in the show notes if you want to contact us with any questions. So with that, thank you for listening. Thank you so much for listening to the Gotta Case Wanderlust podcast. Again, my name is Lydia, and you can find me on social media in the About section of this podcast. Please rate and review if you found value or insight from this, and I hope to see you in the next episode.